The Queens of Spice podcast is created for adult audiences only. Our show contains cursing, vulgar content, dark humor, descriptions of sexual acts and desires, and is not suitable for listeners under the age of 18. Some episodes also contain themes which may be triggering for listeners. Please take care of yourself.
Ashton, bend over so I can get my magic from your butt. Bam!
And welcome to the Queens of Spice podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Ragachu. I'm here with my two BFFs, Ash and Jack. Hi, guys.
Hi, V Winters.
What?
Hi, Rachel.
How's it going?
You guys never watched Drag Race?
Nope.
Wait, what did you say, though?
Ivy Winters? I said hi, Ivy Winters.
Oh.
There's a drag queen called Ivy Winters, and every time RuPaul says their name, they're like, Ivy Winters.
I don't know if you knew this, but do you guys follow Dimension 20 at all? It's one of like the tabletop
No.
RPG games. Okay. Brendan Lee Mulligan, who's like one of my favorite human beings on
Is that
planet
the
Earth.
ginger guy that you give me some dick for?
Yes. He just ran a game called Dungeons and Drag Queens with a bunch of like RuPaul's Drag Race
Amazing.
drag queens, and like it's so fucking good. I just need to gush
Amazing.
about that.
What? Does Bucket Nuts know about that?
Oh, surely to God, Bucket. If he doesn't, I will tell him later.
We'll tell him
yeah,
later.
we'll have to tell him.
When he's done being bucket nutty.
So what we're talking about today, however, is a very special book, I'll say, called Initiation
I fucking love this book so much.
by Alethea Faust, published in 2022. Magic is a rare gift that only exists in the bloodlines of the rich, the royal, and the reputable. Dominai of Arendelle, a poor hunter and forest guide, is barely one of those things. But after a moonlight encounter with wizard Alessandre, Dominai's life is changed forever. She reveals that Dominai has magic in his lineage and provides him with a letter of introduction to the Crux, the center of magical study in the kingdom of Stratham. Magical study is a far cry from the dusty tomes and rituals that Dom was expecting. Instead, it is sex and desire, submission and surrender, loyalty and love, and above all, trust. But when the trust of the Crux is betrayed, Dom must face his own insecurities and the unknown to protect his new home and his fellow wizards.
I fucking love this book.
One of my very first notes about this book was describing this book and reading this book are two completely different experiences. And
Where's that note?
It's
It's your second note.
But my first note is always, here's all the other shit that Alethea Faust is doing.
Oh, that's fair.
This is book 1 of the Sex Wizard series. And book two is called...
I just can't. Like, this book has no right to be as good as it is.
It's very funny because when we first started talking about this book, you're like, this is wild. And I looked at the cover, I'm like, I love this cover. It's beautiful. It's like this beautiful like watercolor cover that Alethea commissioned, I assume. And it's just wonderful. And then you start reading it, and once you describe it, you're like, yeah, it's just sex wizards. And I'm like, what the fuck? Of course I'm going to read sex wizards. But then you start reading it, you're like, this has no fucking right to be this good.
Oh, listen. I went in with like zero expectations. I basically like, tripped and stumbled and fell on this book. And I was like, I read the synopsis and I was like, all right. But like, I settled into it the same way you settle into like a B movie. Like,
Expectations low.
yeah, I mean, like, I know I'm going to be like entertained to some degree, but like, you know, whatever. And it's like, oh, I'll try it out. Why not? It was one of those, like, I found it on Kindle Unlimited. When I started reading it, I was like, wait, they write really, really well. And this is so well thought out. I'm like blown away. And I always feel bad being like, I'm so shocked. This is good. Because like, this series is literally just sex wizards. And it's very simple because it's exactly what it is.
It's exactly the description of it. But like for some reason, when you say sex wizards, it evokes a completely different feel and look and whatever than this book actually is.
Oh, listen, I've talked to so many of my clients about this book, and they're like, I'm like, no, you don't understand.
You don't understand. Because again, it's a different experience describing it to people than it is actually reading it. Because
Yes!
Alethea is like such an amazing author in every way.
But like, and I'll be honest, I've commented on some things and they've commented back, and like, I really appreciate that they take the time to interact with people, and like some of the things that they tweet, I'm like, that's so funny, and like,
They seem like a very wholesome, like,
I get good vibes
Yeah,
in a big
totally.
way about this person, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I love that, And like the little bits at the front of every chapter, I appreciated to such a high degree. I was like, that was such a nice touch.
Yeah, because some of it is like describing what the magic schools are,
Exactly.
and then others is like trigger warnings about each chapter because
Always
the
trigger
whole
warnings.
thing is
always trigger warnings, which like
per chapter, which really speaks to like what this book has in it, and
Yeah.
and even but not even that, but the care that Alethea put into writing and
Yes.
and authoring this book.
and the like thank you for like I love settling into a book that has representation in such a huge way that just so effortlessly done, because I sometimes find that when you settle into some books where you it almost feels like, oh, you're forcing this. I see, oh, the gay best friend again, here we go, like, oh, of course,
And I think a lot of that has to do with the main character Dom, who I talked about, because Dom is a very, I don't want to say simple, but a very like impressionable character in that he just is open and ready to and willing to learn, and even in like in his experiences especially.
With Dom as a character, you can really kind of, it's almost like he's stepping into it, so you're stepping into it, so you're getting it as he's getting it, and so you're learning as he's learning, which is fantastic. But also he's not without his own like prejudices too, which is like, it's not just one of those like, I'm gonna accept everything, because there is a character that he's like and like, so you go through that whole like with them,
Little apprehension.
yeah. And I love that character the bestest.
Gosh, where do we start? So
I don't even know.
As I mentioned in the summary, so Dom, like early, so he's a wood guy dude. He lives in the mountains. Well, he guides people through the mountains.
Yeah.
And the mountains are called the Hobokens. And he
gets hurt.
Yeah, so he was fighting a wolf of all things. It was a rabid wolf, and it was really like affecting. Wolf. People weren't going into the mountains or into any of the trails or anything, or hunting or any of that stuff, because there was this rabid wolf around. So he's like, well, shit, I'll go deal with that, and there's reward and stuff like that. So he went to find this wolf and hunt it down, or whatever. But in the meantime, while he was doing that, he like fell off a cliff or something and broke his arm, and it didn't heal properly. So it really hindered him. Like, he couldn't use a bow,
which is a big thing for him.
Which was a big thing for him. He basically couldn't do his job anymore. And like,
I know how that feels.
And so previous to that, he had guided Alessandra through the woods, and she was a wizard
Through the woods,
and she was through
Little
the
Red
mountains.
Riding Hood.
And she like, what happened? Oh, he saved her. Like they ran into some trolls or goblins or something weird in the woods, and he fought them off and saved her basically. And then she rewarded him by doing them. And then that's when she did them.
Reward sex is great sex.
Listen, it's the best kind.
The best kind of sex is reward sex.
I've been a good girl.
Thank you.
Give me sex.
Nailed it. Perfect.
I'd like a puppy.
Can I interest you in sex? I can't do puppies. Puppies are expensive.
But can I interest you in some sex instead?
No, I want a puppy.
Well, I can't help you with that one. Okay, so that's so when they do it the first time, Alessandra like
do it the first time, because
Oh,
there's
I
so
guess-
much doing it.
I guess that he and Alessandra only do it one time. I guess in this book, I'll say. I don't know about the second book because I haven't read that yet. So
As Ashton ponders, because she's read them all.
yes, to that point, there's the second book is called Mastery. The third book is called Championship. The third book just came out.
I can't remember.
I think it came out not long ago. There are a couple of novellas. One's called Storm Night. One's called Divination Practice, and then the next novella coming out is called Starshine.
And it comes out on August 1st.
Yeah, so like, what is this, like next week, basically, when this comes out?
Sure.
And that's with Garrett and Bridget, who are two characters we'll talk about later.
Bridget's not in this book.
That's right. But
Garrett is, though.
She's married to Garrett, though?
Yes,
And so is that like it's their origin story, I think?
Yes,
Because
she
whole
was a
thing.
prostitute and he's
an
was a
orc.
virgin. I love how you were going with orc. I went with virgin.
He was a virgin orc. We were both right.
Yeah,
Okay.
he is. Or is he half orc?
Oh, you're right. He's probably half orc.
I can't remember.
I feel like you're
I
right.
can't remember.
And then
But he's
also,
a really good sub.
he's the gold standard for a sub, I believe, is what they phrase him as.
Yep.
So Althea, though, also, and if you end up being into this book and want to read some more and stuff, definitely sign up for their newsletter, because very much like Katie Roberts, they release like gallons of content, like in little like offshoots and little stories and stuff about all the like the in-betweens of characters and stuff like that. Just like write little scenes and stuff that come out in their newsletter.
And there's always fun like fan art too. Like somebody drew them fan art for their birthday, and it was like Dom with a candle in his butt or something.
Yeah, you showed me that. It was
I was
wonderful.
like, this is so delightful. It's not
It's
even
wonderful.
funny.
This is the thing. Like the community that Alethea kind of ended up with around, or created around this is so lovely and wholesome, and it's just like it just feels so inclusive and wonderful.
Wholesome sex.
Yeah, I mean wholesome in like people respect and talk about.
No,
things
but I mean
and
it's
just,
big.
Yeah,
It's like when we were going on about Gravity. You're like, oh, this is so cute. It's so like this book is very wholesome and dirty in such delightful ways.
it's so casually filthy and well no, but like it's
Filthy casual.
yeah. So when Dom first goes, because he breaks his arm, whatever, he heals funny. He can't really do his job anymore. So he's after he had gotten with Alessandre, she wrote him a letter of recommendation to go to the Crux, which is the magic school.
Yes.
Because she's like, oh, you have magical blood in you. Like, you should go study magic. And so eventually he's like, well, I guess I'm going to go study magic because I can't do my job anymore.
Did he ever question like how she knew that?
I don't think he did,
Because
but
he was like kind of shocked when he got there, and he was like, oh,
yeah.
all of the things.
Just that she said he had magical inclination. They
Yeah.
fleshed it out a little bit more in the book, but like I'm kind of summarizing it.
They flushed him out.
God, okay. So when he gets to the Crux, one of my very few beefs with this book, and I think we talked about this, Ash, is that they like a lot of the time they don't really explain what's gonna happen.
And to be fair as well, that was not something that you came to the conclusion of until you read it the second time.
Yes, and then I was
Because
also
it's not an obvious thing.
It's not. It feels very natural the first time through, where you're like, oh, he's going to go to this school and he's going to get tested to see his magical, affinity, basically. And then he does get tested, and being tested for magical affinity is helping to cast a spell. And helping to cast a spell is
to be a conduit.
Is being a conduit. Is being like, I think in that case it was like tied up and blindfolded by
Olberg.
it was Galivia.
Olivia did it?
Galivia, yeah. She was the first person he met.
Right.
Yeah, and so she takes and like tests him to see if he can be a conduit.
Right.
And surprise, he can be a conduit. So the way
very good one.
What's that?
A very good one.
Yes, he's a very good conduit, which makes him like an ideal sub as well.
I have, because I'm looking at the notes that Rachel made, because that's what she does. And the above all trust, I have to wonder if that's kind of a component of it, though, is that trust that like he trusts them implicitly to find his limits, and that's why they don't. Like,
I don't know, but here's the thing too, because like, oh yeah, no, consent is super important, but how can you consent to something that you don't know what it is? Do you know what I mean? So that, and like, I totally, like, I understand to a point of the, like, you should give it a try anyway, like, mentality. No, but explain it first as opposed to just going with the flow.
Yeah.
Because,
this
like,
isn't Brussels sprouts. now.
God,
Come on.
Brussels sprouts. I don't trust Brussels sprouts.
This isn't Brussels sprouts.
They're delicious.
I hate them.
Oh,
I
with
love
bacon
Brussels
and
sprouts.
garlic.
I hate Brussels sprouts.
Oh,
Maybe
like,
some Parmesan
They
cheese.
smell-
I was just gonna say Parmesan
They
cheese.
smell like feet.
Well, delicious feet.
Gross.
Yeah.
So
Delightful.
unlike Brussels sprouts in every way. So there's several schools of magic in this.
Sex and Brussels sprouts.
Don't ruin it.
There's a book for you.
Love sex and Brussels sprouts.
I had a client get really excited to tell me about a book that they bought in an area of Nova Scotia. I think it might have been Lunenburg, and it was like lobsters in the sex store.
Excuse me, what?
Lobsters in the sex shop, I think it's called. It's by
Oh
I don't know.
my.
I have to investigate further.
We will be investigating that further for any listeners who want to know.
Yeah. It's like it's something along the lines of like people wanting to open a sex store in an area like Lunenburg. I don't know.
Like small town, basically.
Yeah.
Very much a fisherman village.
I'm intrigued,
You have my attention.
right?
So the schools of magic in this are very, like, Alethea fleshed this out so rigorously.
Oh,
Even in
yeah.
the first book of, like, man, okay. So there's 7 schools of magic. There's abjuration, evocation, illusion, divinitation, corpmancy, and conjuration, transmutation, and enchantment.
That sounds like you're singing like a children's
That's
song.
8. I'm sorry. There's 8 schools of magic. Yeah.
Like
Abjuration,
supercalifragilistic-
evocation,
Yeah.
illusion, divinitation. Yes.
Thank you, Mary Poppins. Like sexy Mary Poppins. With dancing penguins.
Oh God. Not a lot of dancing in this, really. Don't think
I
there's
mean,
any.
sexual dancing.
Yeah, I mean the dance of the
Horizontal dancing.
horizontal. Actually, a lot of it's vertical. I'm not gonna lie, because a lot of the time they tie them up to stuff and then they put stuff in their various orifices.
Which I thought was kind of fucking ingenious. Like the whole, oh my God.
So, do you want to talk about because a lot of the chapters kind of revolve around each school of magic, more or less. Because I think there's a couple of them that aren't mentioned per se, like aren't dedicated to. But
I love that you wrote down what the kink was,
yeah.
but you didn't write down what the magic was. Oh no, you did.
On some of them I did.
Protection, energy. Okay.
Yeah.
I skipped over that. My ADHD brain was like, only pick out certain words.
I even have the colors associated with them.
I know.
I had to do some recon to make that happen too, because I was like, oh, this person has this specialty in this one, but they didn't mention this one, but they have this one, and this is the color. And man, it was wild. I was dedicated to this cause.
Do you know what's really funny?
What's that?
Is that I would have expected to learn something in a book that's structured this way. I was like, I'm gonna learn some kind of weird kinky thing or something. You know what I mean? Some kind of something that I haven't heard of before, and I didn't. And I was like, I've heard of a lot of these things, or the terminology. Do you know what book I learned something reading? Fucking Pucking Around. That was the book that I was like, I don't know what snowballing is, and then I learned.
I'm ashamed to say I do know what snowballing is.
The cum spitting thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Sure do. Heard of it.
I learned it, and I was like,
Heard of it.
heard of it.
Heard of it.
I mean, I don't know if that. I was like, I'm proud of myself for knowing all the things.
It's also I will say, if you are familiar with the kink community and the kind of the kink genre in general, this is very a lot of it's basic bones. There's not a lot of advanced stuff going on.
But I'm not.
Per se. Right, but I mean, but you've read these kind of books before, so you're familiar with BDSM to some degree.
Yeah, but I read all of the books that are out so far. I would have thought at some point I was going to come across something that I wasn't aware of.
Challenge. Alethea,
You're
come up with something.
smarter than you think.
Alethea, come up with something we haven't heard from before.
Find something for Ashton.
Find something for Ashton to be upset about.
Not upset about. Oh, well, I mean, I'm not going to be upset. I like to learn things. And because I'm the person at work to be like, what is that? I don't know. Ask Ashton, because she's the weird kinky person. I'm like, but I'm not. It's like when I had that person I work with ask me if I had a FetLife account, and I was like, no. She's like, you just seem like the type that would.
Do you remember the last time I checked my FetLife account and it was the first time? It was the first time in 9 years, and someone 9 years ago had asked me to be in a D&D group, and I'm like, oh shit, I better write them back, and I did, and they're like, oh, I moved, sorry. I'm like, god damn it.
That was the same night that Jacqueline started a FetLife account, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Hilarious.
At me.
No, please don't.
I don't know what that means.
So all the chapters and really the story progression through this just goes through the various forms of magic. It's a lot. I don't know.
And it's well flushed out.
It's so well fleshed out. I don't want to go through every single nitty gritty bit of it.
It's so well flushed out, though.
And
did you have a okay? Did you have a favorite of the types of things that they did? Did you?
I really like the Corpmancy one. I think that was really cool. So Glivia, who's one of the main female characters, and Ulbrich is the other one. He's he's male in this, but in the second book, I understand he goes through transitioning.
He starts to not in the second one, in the third one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ulbrich's great. I adore Ulbrich, and King Cassie is fantastic.
Yeah, so King Cassie is a Maeve, which they are intersex species, and they have extra weird joints and stuff like that. They're
very fine and fair.
Yes, they're very delicate almost.
Yeah, I don't think they go into it in the first book, but in later books, King Cassie talks about their familial system and how some people choose to bear children or some people choose to rear children. And
interesting. Okay.
And it's that whole thing.
It's a choice you get to make.
Yeah, it's very individualistic. Whereas King Cassie's I didn't want to have anything, so I'm just here learning the magics and.
Because there are there's a bunch of, and another one of the races is Marguerite, who's an Ovisary, which is kind of a sheep person, kind of. She's got horns and stuff. But she's the divinitation master. Yeah, she's the divinitation master. So a divinitation, as you can guess from it is like kind of seeing into the future, into the past, or like divining.
Which I found it really interesting, the way that is like the way it goes down, because it's different than the other schools of magic.
Yeah.
With the silver, which I thought was kind of neat.
Yeah, so the silver is like, it's like deprivation kind of.
Yeah, sensory stuff.
Yeah, it's sensory deprivation, and edging is a big one too.
Yes.
Because you're basically creating this huge amount of like deprivation and tension.
Yes.
In order to like almost not break their psyche, but like kind of morph their psyche into seeing.
To me, it kind of reminded me of like when people do the deprivation tanks, like the float tanks, where it's like you do it.
You're
for
like
the first,
expanding your mind and shit.
Well, you do it for the first. You do it for my understanding for that is like you do it for 75 minutes, because the first 15 it takes your brain to shut down, and then for the next hour you get that like surreal relaxation. I love how Jacqueline's just like la 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 la.
What'd you color in, Jack?
A butt.
Nice.
I'm gonna touch the butt.
It's got anal beads in it.
Okay, so Jack, the way they store their spells
Is in their butt?
is in beads and
Butts.
and like circlets, I guess.
Beads and circles. And butts.
To me, it was like in cock rings, basically. Like,
It's funny because I got the vibe of like a Mardi Gras bead kind of thing.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like
that's what it looks like.
Yeah, and I mean like Jack, here's the cover of the book. So like, see how they have like beads and rings on a necklace?
Okay.
Yeah, so those are their actual spells. So they have to use those to cast their spells.
So
and
in order to throw them at people?
like more. Well, you hold them and it releases the spell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so the way they make those spells happen is by casting and using a conduit in order to obtain those spells. So the little round ones are generally they're anal beads. So they have them, in someone's butt, and then when they're ready to finalize the spell, they pull them out, and it creates it charges the spells.
Yep.
And so the rings go on penises.
And fingers.
Were there finger rings in this one?
I don't think there was finger rings in these, but they do go on fingers.
That makes sense. A lot of time they just like slip a couple rings on their dick and then they charge them.
So they're like, oh my god, I need to cast a spell. Hey, person with the anal beads in your butt, bend over so I can get my
Not quite.
magic from your
similar-
butt.
See? When you describe it,
Ashton, bend over so I can get my magic from your butt. Bam!
I need to summon a wolf. Bend over.
Time traveling anal beads.
It's
my
finally
God.
come full circle.
I broke her.
You imagine you just rip them out and then the person's gone?
Amazing.
Fuck! Spell backfired. Where'd
hate-
Ashton go?
Hate when my spell backfires and I teleport somewhere. Jesus.
Wrong anal beads.
Wrong hole.
All the things.
Rachel, quick, bend over so I can get Ashton back.
It just reminds you of like one of those. You're like pulling out a lawnmower.
Oh, the sound it would make. Brrr, like that, but slower. Like, brrr, boop, 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 boop. Ashton's back! Or like a magician with like when it pulls the scarf and it just
That doesn't
goes
make
on.
noise though.
The scarf?
Yeah.
Well, no.
Depends how.
But it goes on for a long time.
Goes on for a long time. So Jack, what they do, they prepare the spells ahead of time. And then they put them on their necklaces to carry around, so they have them and they want to use them.
So each one of these individual things, they want to charge. And then if there are two people involved in the spell, the caster and the conduit, one each gets a spell, and then they take the other two and they put them in kind of like a vault so that they have like an excess amount of spells.
So the butt is not the vault.
Correct.
So
It's more like a pocket you can hide things in.
It's my prison pocket.
it's your prison,
mitten.
your prison pocket that charges your spell balls.
Nailed it.
No balls.
So
Or
because
rings. Spell rings too.
because I colored each of these spell balls
They would
a
actually
different
be
color.
They would actually be the same color, but that's okay.
so
Happy Pride.
they would all be the same
Yeah,
then?
they'd all be the same thing.
So does like Ashton's butt only charge a certain spell and your butt does a different one?
So here's how it works. So the magic are based on the schools of magic that I outlined before.
Right.
And then the
Which
various
Jacqueline doesn't have the notes
That's
of.
right. That's true. And so depending on the type of magic you're casting, it develops a certain type of spell.
This is why it's a kink-based magic system. Each kink provides you with a different type of magic, which is what we were just talking about with the divination, where it's sensory-based and edging. So this,
But now those don't actually make a spell.
those charge it though.
Divinitation does not create spells. Divinitation is an experience.
Oh,
It's one of the only.
right.
It's the only school of magic you don't actually get like a physical thing from.
Right.
You get a memory or you get whatever, but it's not a thing that they. At least, sorry, I'll just in this book they don't do that. I don't know if in the future
recall
they do.
it creating, but
Okay.
like the kink provides the magic is basically the way it works. So like,
Conjuration's a good example. So Arlon, who's the head wizard, he does a conjuration spell with Dom, where he basically puts him in a chastity belt for a week. Because he's like, you're being a conduit a lot this week, and I think I don't want you to burn out, don't want you to get too excited, whatever, because it's very exhausting. It takes a lot out of you.
well, not only that, but like when Dom shows up, his experience has been like strictly hetero, he hasn't really experienced a lot of stuff, and so he's there, and they're like, so do you have anything against like having sex with men? And he's like,
I've never done that.
I've
before.
never done it,
Yeah.
but I'm sure let's try it. Yeah, okay, well, whatever.
And this is the thing, because like in some of the reviews actually, which is an interesting point, Dom never says no or turns away or shies away from anything. And so in this regard, he's just like, I'm going to try anything. I don't care. Like, I'll just try it. It'll be fine. And if I don't like it, whatever. But it's like, so never does he tiptoe towards a safe word ever. Like, he never even thinks about using it, I don't think, in any of this book.
No, and the only time that it ever really comes up where it's like a thing that he doesn't 100% like is enchantment. Because he doesn't like is it humiliation?
Oh, humiliation. Yeah.
Yeah,
They don't do that in this book for him. They talk about it with other people.
At the end, when they in the big in the hall where it's everybody and
Yeah.
there was a component of it of the enchantment to it, because that was the one time Arlen ever saw him like not necessarily hit a wall but come close to it, because they talk about it in the second book how when they're setting parameters around a situation, how like he recognizes how the hall, because he was humiliated a bit and like you know what I mean. Anyway, it was a thing. It wasn't strictly that, but
The spell had a component of it.
yeah, and that was like the one time he was like, it was a bit meh.
And anyway, we'll talk about crashing later. But
yeah,
because aftercare is a big thing in this, obviously.
big thing.
Because like when you're doing like heavy scenes and that kind of stuff, it's like they want to make sure you're looked after afterwards, because you'll crash really hard.
Yeah.
But back to my point was that Dom was put in a chastity belt for a week.
Yes.
Because he was doing all these things and not saying no and whatever. He was just like going with the flow. And especially because like with Galivia and Ulbrich were like, oh, we got a new toy. Let's like make all these spells. And like he wants to learn all these things. So let's teach him all these things. And so it was a lot really fast. And so when Arlon put him in the chastity belt for like a week, and then everybody knew, so they were teasing him really bad. And it was like, it's an interesting chapter where he just kind of is having like a hard time in a bad way because like he was
all fuck with him afterwards, isn't it?
No, that's towards the end when he has the red. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. That's leading up to the big like kind of orgy scene at the end.
Yeah.
The crescendo, as it were. But yeah, Arline put him in this chastity belt, which is part of enchantment.
Chastity belt, conjuration.
It's conjuration. Good thing I wrote these down. So conjuration, at the end of it, like Arlon releases from the chastity belt, and then he like, slips some rings on him and makes him conjure a spell basically. And so the first thing
He
that
masturbates, doesn't he?
yeah, well, I think
And then
Arlon
fucks him afterwards.
I think it's hard to remember, honestly, because it all blends together. And like Jack, if you look at all these like tabs I have in this book, there's a lot. It's a lot going on.
And you know
every
what?
single chapter has sex like at least one
lots of-
time.
And the wild thing is that that's not like a 2-page sex scene. That's like a
it's like the whole chapter.
whole chapter's worth of sex.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally almost every chapter is like a sex scene.
Like it was.
Great, so I'm going to read the whole book to the audience.
I honestly like the part that you're gonna read. I kind of cut out a lot of it. We'll talk about it before we start reading because I have to set the scene up. But like it's a lot.
scene.
Like the entire book is just like sex scene after sex scene after sex scene. But it's not like erotica sex scene. It's like it's storytelling at the same time. So it's not super. it was such an interesting mesh of like you're telling a story, but the story just involves sex every like 10 minutes.
We've read books that are story-wise so much tamer than this, but sex scene-wise so much more aggressive. Where this was just, it was a nice kind of like flip-flop of that.
It was one of those things that like nobody made a big deal out of stuff, I think is what it was. It comes down to like nothing. There was nothing like hella dramatic going on. The hella dramatic was the actual story that was going on, which I touched on in the summary of like what was going on behind the scenes in the Crux, where like there was these other wizards who were thrown out of the Crux at one point, who were trying to get revenge on them and like build their own basically like coven of magic, and were collecting beads and magical supplies and stuff
And kidnapped.
in like a very bad way, which comes back to like Alessandra was kidnapped basically, and there was other wizards that had gone kind of missing over the years, and but like it didn't raise any bells or anything, because Alessandra was like leaving to go on a little
They were
away.
they were like nomadic wizards of sorts.
It made sense for them to have like, well, maybe they're just not going to come back for a while. That's okay. It happens.
And it also that point brings into like one of, it's like consent is so like the worst thing you can do is force a wizard to do something they don't want to do. Like that is,
and that's
their
why
hard
some
line.
of those wizards got kicked out.
Yeah,
was because they
exactly.
broke consent.
Yeah.
And they're like, get the fuck out. Bye.
Which is a huge, like it's a huge
Of course.
part of it.
Well, like BDSM in general, it's like the number one rule is consent.
Yeah.
Always consent.
Well, I mean, the number one rule to life in general is consent. One would argue, like
Fair.
And I make you sit here and listen to me talk about polka music for the entire time. I do not consent.
So, polka music aside, so the first thing he conjures is
Is that from Lemony Snicket?
What? I would love to see the mental
The map.
the mental like ping pong game that just went through Jacqueline's head in order to get to Lemony Snicket.
a series of unfortunate events, one would say.
Yes, that he said Lemony Snicket. I don't know. No.
So the first thing he conjures is a wolf, and it's a wolf that is modeled exactly after the wolf that he killed, which was interesting. Except she was like healthy and whatever, and follows his order and stuff. So that's like the first conjuration spell that he himself.
friend.
Yeah, it's like his only
He's got a
personal
puppy.
thing. Yeah, he has a little puppy that he
He's a
can.
puppy.
Dom
he can-
is the one. Is who you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was basically his first spell, and it was like
Dom
his
has a
own
puppy.
his. I'm not getting you a puppy, Ashton. I offered you sex. You didn't want it.
I want a puppy.
I can't help you. I'm sorry.
Why doesn't she want our sex? Damn it.
Vicious.
I have a question.
What's up, dog?
Okay, so my notes
Puppy.
say they have wands, but gosh, they are not what you think they are.
Correct.
Penises.
No, they're not for what you. Anyway, what are their wands all about?
Oh, they're just dildos. They have a lot of sex toys. Like a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
sex toys. So the scene you're going to read actually has some sex toy stuff going on in it. And a lot of them are like, again, magical, have magical elements to them. So like they turn them on, but there's no batteries. Like it's not a thing. They just like are charged because magic.
I just picture like a little like
Oh.
electric ball of light like inside of it.
Yeah, basically. That honestly is the vibe I get.
I get it.
It's a joke.
Vibrators, vibes. Oh
Good
my
vibes only.
goodness.
Good vibes only. That like honestly covers most of my notes. We'll talk about how the story kind of fleshes out.
We're just gonna ignore pony play.
No,
No,
you're
not yet.
You're gonna
We're
read
not-
all
we're not-
about
we're not
it.
ignoring pony
Jack,
play.
you're gonna read it, buddy. I'm not sorry.
What I really liked about the magic system too is it wasn't just like the act that charged the thing. It was a combination of like what the person puts into it and what the person takes out of it that helped charge the magic. Like, and that comes into it later in the second book with Dom starting to do the casting himself and why his spells aren't as strong because he's more of a sub and he has to learn all that stuff. And you also get wizards that because of actually some of the events that happen in this book and because of their own individual preferences, like if you have like an asexual character, those kinds of things, who aren't necessarily interested in the completion aspect of the charging of the spell, which you would think would be like a big part of charging the spell, But Dom has a scene in the second book with one of the wizards who it was kidnapped in this one, where it's more of the mental game, and even Arlen's like, you cast with so and so, like, oh my god, and he's like, yeah, it was easy. But that's kind of the brilliance of Dom's character too, in that, like, the first school of magic that he like gets his mastery, not mastery, is that what it is?
Yep, he gets his mastery in it.
Is the divination.
It is,
and it's because he is able to walk Galivia through it, because Galivia had a bad experience with Marguerite, because Marguerite had a cold and fell asleep or something like that.
She wasn't as attentive as she should have been.
Yeah, and it wasn't a good experience for Galivia, so Galivia didn't want to have to do that because she didn't like the loss of control and all of those things.
And so, she like panicked really bad.
Yeah. And so Dom recognized, because he'd been casting with Galivia for a bit, he recognized like what she would have needed, and he was able to walk her through that in a way that made her comfortable. And then they're like, hey, well, congratulations, sir.
Well, and if you recall too, he was the one he was one of the last people to see Alessandre.
Yeah.
So through his divinitation, he was able to pick up that she had been kidnapped.
Yes.
And they had kind of pieced together what was going on, because at one point, Ulbrich had to leave for a mission, which was to protect this mine, which was at the foothills of the Hoboken. So at one point, I think it was Dom actually saw the divinitation of him being captured.
Yes.
By these rogue wizards. And so they were able, like, a group of wizards got together and followed this trail, basically. And again, he's like the mountain man who can like track people. And they
because Galivia fixed his arm.
Yes. Well, that's a whole nother side. So that's the Court Mancy stuff.
Yeah.
But so he was able to pick up the trail, and they all like, you know, went off to basically rescue their wizards. And so because he like had gotten all these divinations, basically he himself is not solely responsible, but partially responsible for getting them back. And so because of that, he was awarded his divinitation mastery.
Yeah. And then they had the orgy scene where he and Garrett get tied together, and he was like, I don't like orcs. And then he was like, okay, well, you're pretty cool, I guess.
Well, so, and then
bucket nuts.
Yeah. So Garrett Garrett has a good conversation with him too about like, why do you hate orcs?
Yes.
And he's like, well, I was told to hate orcs. He's like, yeah, but why do you hate them? He's like, well, that's how I was raised. And
but
he's like, I don't think you understand how the world is.
But even that was so well done.
Haven't you heard of racism?
Yeah.
It just is what I know.
Well, it's one, and that's the thing, because it's like Alethea is calling out some racism here, obviously, about like, hey, just because like your people used to think that, like, you humans have such a short memory span. Because your generations like roll over so quickly that like you just accept what the next person has said. Yeah. And it's like, that's not how the world is. Like, when was the last time you saw an orc? And he's like, well, never, I guess. It's like, no shit. Because never. Right.
Now you're getting boned next to one.
Who's also, and so he's also a sub, the orc.
Yeah, I know. I love Garrett so much.
They end up like casting the other a couple times, which is or being involved a couple times.
And the next books are so good. I love it so much. Oh, Garrett.
So they go on this mission to get their wizards back, and you know they are successful in that. There's a lot of, it's very, again, it's just like, it's like a little adventure thing where it's like he uses his wolf to like track the trail, and they like have this big crazy wizard fight and with these like bad wizards.
Wizard battle.
Oh, it's insane. And they were like using the captured wizards to like forcefully make spells to like build this spell armada, basically. It's a whole thing. Big ship gang.
I was trying to find the bad guy's name, because
I didn't put it in there. I don't think.
I know, because all I can think of is Harry Potter, come to die.
The boy who lived, come to die.
And it's ironic that that's where my brain went, because like, hello turf, and then this book is like
the complete opposite of that.
Everybody loves everybody.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds
Hard.
me. One of my favorite things about the spell system in this is that they mix and match the different schools of magic.
Yeah.
So like you can have a protection spell that's also like a manipulation spell.
It's and like Pokemon.
Yeah, for sure. You can mix your like levels.
Gotta catch them all. Gotta cast them all.
And So because of that, like they do a lot of experimentation to see what kind of magic they're gonna make.
It's
Really cool. And so and of course, like as we mentioned, like the casting is reflected into the actual spell that comes out. So like if there's a lot of impact, then like you can have a spell that like pushes somebody, sort of thing.
Yeah. Or if you use like fire, candles, wax.
Oh, hot wax.
Hot wax. You get
fire
like
element to it.
Yeah.
It's
like,
really cool.
It's so fucking brilliant.
It's
like,
so. It's just,
I'm like,
it's one of those things that I'm like. Could you imagine just sitting around with your friends shooting the shit? Be like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if like you had sex that turned into like spells, and like when you pour hot wax on somebody, it like made fire. Like that would just—it's such a weird.
See, your brain goes there, and my brain goes to like those moments after my boyfriend and I have had sex, and we're like being assholes, and we're like joking around, like high fiving about stuff, and just being like, I wonder what kind of spell that would have created. Like, what do you think would have happened when we
vanilla
came with that
pudding?
One? Yeah, okay, call me out on that one, why don't you? That's not a spell, Rachel. It's a food.
Gosh, what else do I have to say about this? Oh, Jack, I'm gonna get you to read something. Okay.
Yay!
So I'm gonna set this up. Okay.
Imagine Sicily, 1949.
Okay, so this is a piece from the chapter called "Training in Transmutation." And transmutation is the school of magic that transforms and modifies matter. Casting methods include objectification and role-playing, such as pony play. So in this one, Dom is casting with Kinkassi, who's intersex, which you mentioned, and they are dressing him up in a horse outfit to go do some horse training.
Dressage.
Yeah, they literally do dressage training, and then they hook him up to like a cart, and he runs around and stuff. And
like I had that moment when I got into that chapter, and where I was like, I wonder how far they're gonna take this, and I was like, oh, they're going like all the way.
And this is another one where I'm like, this was one of the few instances where Dom was like, I don't know about this, but I guess I'll do it. And he just kept going along with it, and then like he just did it. It was fine.
And is she reading to the end of the chapter?
No.
Okay. And that was one of the things too with like with Dom, he gets so into it. Like you get that in the books, like in this book and in the other books, like how deep he goes into it. It really impacts like his level of like how careful you have to be with it, because he just surrenders in all ways, not just like surrendering to the person. He surrenders like to the magic itself, and like
he really becomes a pony. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, in this case, yes.
And that's what makes him such a great sub, is that he just lets himself go in all ways and is in the moment in a way that not everybody can be.
I mean, and that's the thing, because it's like so seldom, when the way this reads, it's so seldom he's in his own head about something. And the only time he is in his own head about it, if you remember, is after he does that crash, when he starts like spiraling basically. And it's like that's the one time when he really kind of like delves deep into his own brain hole about what he's doing and what's going on. And
that's why humiliation is such a thing for him, because he actually convinces himself that he is not worth, or he is whatever. That's why they have to be so careful with him in that. Mm-hmm. And he and Arlen have that conversation in the second book, which is really, I know we're not talking about that book, but like I loved that point in the second book, because it showed a component of like Dom sub relationship where like you'd think like, oh, the sub is the one that needs to end the scene because the sub is uncomfortable, but that tends to be like my mindset with it, because it's I'm not into, like, it's not my personal thing to get into.
The Dom is responsible for the sub as well.
Yeah. But you're in this moment where Arlen is the one that's like, I'm not comfortable, I need to back off because I don't like the way this is going. It sends a really great message to Dom in that, which really impacts the way he moves forward with his casting. I really appreciated the levels of it.
It's a learning curve too. I think it's what at the end of the day, because like Dom has to learn those things and he just kind of lets it go. Yeah. But it's like, and I totally understand that like kind of people pleasing mentality of like he is just there to like, oh, he's just there like, oh, they're doing a thing, so I'll just go along with it and help them out, because again, his own job was like being a mountain guide where he just like helped people along their way.
Every time you say mountain guide, I hear mountain guy, and
he's
I was like,
guy. Well,
he's
a
mountain guy.
Yeah, he's a mountain guy.
All right.
So Jack, I'm gonna get you to read this thing.
But like, what if I'm just doing it because I'm people pleasing? Shouldn't someone save me?
I'm pretty sure that's just Jacqueline and the podcast in general is like, I'm here because I'm making them happy.
Help me.
Good girl.
Thanks.
You can give her sex. I want the puppy.
You can't. You can have the sex or nothing. I couldn't say how long we're out, but when Cassie finally pulls me to a stop by the gate, my legs are shaking. My mouth dry around the bit. I feel Cassie's weight leave the cart before they come around and stroke my sweaty hair out of my face. Good boy, they purr, and I lean into the touch. They make quick work of unhitching me from the cart before they snap the lead line back onto my belt. They pull the line short as they guide me back into the courtyard and under the shade of one of the strange willows. Green broke and already so good, they murmur as they tie my lead line around a tree branch. I think such good behavior warrants a reward. Cassie gives a strange sort of whistle. It seems to ripple through the air around me before shivering through me. I don't know what it means, what I'm supposed to do, but a second later I realize it's not for me. The bulb starts to twist inside of me in a deliciously familiar way. I moan around the gag and lean my forehead against the tree trunk as my tired legs start to shake all over again. The ties around my cock and balls seem impossibly tight as Cassie's hands gently unlatch the bit gag. I lick my dry lips before I let out another moan. The harness comes off next, and I'm left with my hands still bound to the belt, still tethered to the tree. I watch Cassie in a haze as they head over to their pack to deposit the tack. They return a moment later with a jug of water and a cloth. They hold the jug to my lips and let me get my fill first. It's cold and wets my dry tongue and lips. I take a few big mouthfuls that make my teeth ache before I gasp for breath. Cassie uses the jug to wet the cloth before sliding it over my bare shoulders. The cold water is a jolt, but not at all unwelcome. Combined with the things happening inside of me, it feels downright divine. I moan as the water trickles down my hot neck and back. Cassie takes their time, humming a nice little tune as they clean sweat off my face and chest. They're thorough, too, tending to my legs as they unlace the shoes and slide them and the socks off. They move up my thighs, leaving me glistening with water before finishing at my cock. They cup my erection, and I buck my hips against their teasing fingers. Cassie takes pity on me and fondles my balls as they squeeze the 5 focuses snug around the base of my cock. The stone sparks, and I can't stop a desperate little shout as I roll my hips into their hand. The little tie around my shaft and balls come off a moment later, and I groan in relief. Now this, they say, and pull me close with a finger through my belt, is not something that goes into normal horse training. I can't stop a huff of a laugh. Cassie unclasps my wrists from the belt and frees me from the lead line. You've been very agreeable, so I think it's only fair you get to decide. How would you like to finish this spell? I open my mouth to try and speak, but they were right. The words just don't want to come out. Instead, I lay my hands on their slender waist, feeling the slight curve of their hips underneath their skirt. Heat rushes through me as I look at them with naked desire. Cassie's curious copper eyes widen just before I spin them and press them up against the smooth trunk of the tree. They give a little gasp of surprise that makes the heat surge through me as I lean against the curve of their back to pin them. My freed hands make quick work of pulling their skirts up to rest over their hips. It's a thrill to find that Cassie is wearing nothing underneath, and I glide a finger over their wet waiting slit. Dominai, they gasp, sounding a little scandalized, though not at all unwilling. After being driven like an animal for the better part of the morning, I feel like a stallion with a mare in heat. I angle my cock to glide against their slit, and Kankasi moans as they roll their hips back in offering. I grab the mounds of their ass, my thumb teasing at the little pucker of flesh at the center. Kankasi lets out a musical moan, and I can feel how they tremble with anticipation. This is how I want to finish, with them moaning underneath me in the shade of the courtyard. I grab their hips, and Kankasi gasps as the tip of my cock slides between their folds. I grab their long white braid and seat myself deep with a sharp thrust. Kankasi shouts, and it's only then the haze breaks enough for me to realize that I still have 5 focuses snug around my length. Kankasi seems to read my mind. No, it's all right, they gasp. I'm shocked I never thought to do it before. Just go easy on me. I grin and press a kiss against the back of their neck before I roll my hips. The tail swishes against the back of my legs even as the bulb continues to twist and spin inside of me, urging me on. I start slow and shallow, an apology for that rough entry. It's a test of my control not to fuck them flat against the tree trunk, and one that I start to fail under the melodic gasps of please and more. Kankasi has a lovely voice, but even more so when it's layered with pleasure. They arch underneath me, hands gripping the trunk of the tree as I fuck them from behind. I hold their braid with one hand while the other snakes around their chest to slide under their shirt. I find the small swell of their breasts and grab onto one as I thrust up into their welcoming heat. With every hard snap of my hips, the focuses shift down my length, adding one more sensation as they spark with charge. Kankasi's body shudders as they let out a shout of ecstasy. I grip their braid tight, pulling their head back against my shoulder as I thrust deep. One of their hands flies back to grab the back of my neck. Oh, fuck! They shout, breathless with pleasure. The muscles of their cunt spasm and constrict around me, and it's my undoing. I groan as I give a few more shallow thrusts before I bury myself to the hilt, my free hand wrapping around Kankasi's waist tightly. My orgasm comes hard, and Kankasi gives a little gasp as I fill them. The constant twisting of the bulb seems to make my orgasm last forever, emptying me and leaving me a little dizzy in the wake of it. I shiver and kiss the back of the Maeve's neck. It takes me a moment longer to find my voice again. I'm going to need you to stop this thing. My words come out hoarse and breathless. Kankasi chuckles before they let out another trilling whistle, and the bulb stills inside of me. I groan in relief and slump against their back. It takes a second longer for me to muster the desire to pull out of them, and when I do, a trail of my seed follows, dripping down their thigh. The Maeve grins at me over their shoulder, face flushed. With their skirts hiked up and cum spilling out of them, they look well and thoroughly plundered. And God's damn if it doesn't make my empty cock twitch again.
Thanks, Jack.
Twitchy.
Yeah, no problem.
How would you feel about being a horse?
It's not ideal, I wouldn't think.
That's fair.
I like to be a person.
Yeah, I mean, that's legit. So the first part of that we kind of skimmed over because length, giggity, was so Kankasi had dressed him up as a horse, like with shoes and like bridle and a bit and all that stuff, and like put a butt plug in his butt, which was the vibrating thing, that had a tail on it, that had a horse tail on it, and then trotted him around and did like dressage exercises and made him pull a cart and stuff. And so basically like getting him into the mindset of being a horse. Right. And the other part we didn't actually, to the point of humiliation that you were talking about, Ash, is that she asked everyone to leave the courtyard so that they didn't have an audience for this, because he was like super not into that part. Yeah, like he was okay in trying it, but he didn't want people like watching him try it. So the it's always interesting where it's like he's testing his boundaries every single moment of this, but like not ever getting there, which is kind of curious.
I think it's like that safety to explore within a comfortable sphere of existence. And like you were talking about before about how nobody ever explains things to him. When I thought after we had that conversation, I thought about it, and like my kind of like interpretation of it is like he's trusting, like he's supposed to be the ultimate sub, and the ultimate sub like trusts and gives their submission as a gift, and like that's the thing, right? Like,
right, but I mean, I guess like in a traditional scene,
yeah.
Generally the dom would like outline what is going
Yeah,
to happen
hands down.
in a loose way,
Yeah.
so that at least you and so there is not any of that really,
Yeah.
in this at all. Like especially even with Arlon, where he's like he goes to visit Arlon at his or he gets summoned to Arlon to go like talk to him after they come back from everything, like after they rescue the wizards and whatever. He goes back in, and Arlon immediately like slaps him in a chastity belt again and puts the fucking red robes on him. And then
Oh yeah.
and then like because he becomes a target is exactly the phrasing they use.
Yeah.
And so everyone's just like kind of fucking with him, or oh no, I'm sorry, they don't put a chastity belt on him the second time. The second time he just gives him the red robes, and so he becomes a target, and everyone like almost gets him there.
Yeah.
Like he goes around and people are like fucking with him.
Yeah.
But they're not like letting him release ever.
Yeah.
And then they're also like when he's about to jerk off, sometimes like somebody will come in and like interrupt him.
Yeah.
So it's a whole thing. And then so like the big massive release at the end is when they have like this big orgy in the meal hall. Basically, they like put him up on a table and just like everyone has their way with him.
It's like a glory hole without the hole.
It's literally it. And so after that happens, he goes. They have these like Jack, you'll love this. In the base
Cupcakes.
in the cupcakes. What?
She said,
Jack, she'll love this.
yeah.
Cupcakes.
I don't know.
I was going to talk about actually the in the basement where they have all the pools. So it's basically like you have like a hot tub.
Oh,
And then there's like there's
the
like
bathing
a cold
room.
the bathing room. There's
Yeah.
like a cold bath, and there's like lukewarm, but they're all like these big pools, and there's all stone and stuff. And it's like really like you can go pick like what temperature water you want to go lay in, and there's like salts and like cleansing stuff and whatever. It's
It
really
has
nice.
to do with the aftercare component of it.
Absolutely. And in this case too, like so after they have that big kind of orgy situation, Ulbrich and
Galivia.
Galivia take him down to the pools and get him all washed up and stuff. And he has like a hard crash where he's talking about, well, it was about like specifically about how he didn't think he was worthy.
Of being
that's
a whore?
Yeah, of being a horse. No, but like that's
I'm a real horse.
that's his kind of thing, and I think that's what makes Dom's character relatable in some respects, or like allows you to put yourself in Dom's position, is that like everybody goes through that feeling of just not being enough or not feeling good, like not like being capable enough, and all of these things.
Well,
like,
and I think a lot of it had to do with like guilt too, because he handed him his divination mastery like before all that happened.
oh yeah, because he didn't work hard enough for it. And
Well, he did.
didn't
Yeah,
do
he didn't
anything.
feel like he worked hard enough to get that, and so there's like this like level of guilt there that I think a lot of people can relate to. Of,
Yeah, I
like,
was just gonna say
that,
yeah.
like they're like, you worked really hard, congratulations, and you're like, did I though? I don't know if I deserve that. And it's like,
showed up.
pretty sure like you just like, especially Dom, it's like you just saved like a handful of wizards that who otherwise like subjected to death, and not even death, but like torture, because they were being like misused and a lot of like horrible things were happening to them.
Very bad things.
Yeah, but I didn't really do anything. I just did what anyone would do.
Exactly, yeah. So like that's kind of the kind of takeaway on that, and then so like, he has this like meltdown about it, and of course it's and as you said, it carries through to the second book. So I'm curious to read that to see kind of where it goes.
I'm curious to see what you think about it, reading it, like now that you have that perspective, and see what your take is, because I've already read it, so like I like all mine is reflection, and I'm still like
There was a couple comments that I found on Goodreads about like, you know, criticisms obviously about the book, because that's going to happen, and a lot of them said that the author addressed a number of those kind of concerns in the second and third book.
Oh yeah, well, I think one of the things that we talked about was like how
He never uses a safe word was one of them.
yes, and then there was no dealing with the fallout.
Mm-hmm.
And you do definitely get that.
Yeah.
And like you don't just get that from one character, you get that from several different characters, in that they all process things in different ways, and they're all going through things in different ways, and they're all, and the thing that they also touch on, which you see in this book but you don't they don't really talk about it, is how you notice how like certain people cast with certain people, and like you cast when you go into the Crux, you cast with anybody you want to. You can cast with anybody, but you tend to over time gravitate towards casting with certain pods of people. So Ulbrich, Galivia, and Kinkasi end up being Dom's kind of like
little pod
core.
of humans.
Yeah. And then in the second book, Arlen becomes a part of that, which is kind of interesting too, because Arlen makes a comment about how he doesn't generally cast with people who are so young, and Dominai is quite young. And it's like that exception to it. And you get into the dynamics with Arlen's relationship, which I really liked.
Interesting.
Because Arlen's kind of got like daddy energy.
He does have big daddy energy.
Yeah, with a big daddy dick. Hem's kind of hung.
Yes. Yeah.
And
but
one
wait,
thing that does get
there's
mentioned
more.
is how like average Dom's dick is.
Oh yes, they do mention that. That's
Yeah,
true.
which
For like the first time ever.
Yeah, like okay, yeah, but like it was just
Because he's lean and he's built and he's athletic, and so he's just like an average dude.
so he just like pull off his pants and like a sausage salami falls out.
my
It's
favorite
like
part, though.
fucking kielbasa banging up against his leg, and you're like, where did that come from?
Fucking fuck me up without kielbasa. That's fine.
I mean, the comment is always, but that ass though.
Dad ass though.
Dad ass though.
So speaking of dad ass, we're going to rate this book out of spells, focuses, and we're gonna call it 13 focuses on a necklace. So like those can be
Okay.
So they can be like the circular focuses or like the spherical ones, like whatever you want.
Don't give Jacqueline room to.
Those are the only two options. You got a spear or you got circles. That's it. So cock rings or anal beads. Jacqueline, based on your limited knowledge of this book, what would you rate this out of 13?
4.
Care to explain? Elaborate?
No.
All right, cool. Ash, what do you got?
I've never had Jack. I don't know what to say about
What
this.
a twist.
Jacqueline's like,
Are you I have to ask, are you upset about the thing you read?
Maybe a little.
About being a horse?
Don't like the horse thing. Didn't like that.
Mission accomplished.
you like that less than a penguin egg traveling past a prostate?
At least that was
Penguins?
penguins. Yeah, exactly. And there was blueness. The horse wasn't even a fun color or anything.
The horse was a person.
The horse was a person.
It didn't even turn into a real horse.
No, it's pony play though. So he pretends he is.
So it's pony play, yet it's a horse. Like, that's not even the same thing.
He's not even hung like a horse.
I was going to say he's not even a centaur. So you can't find out how he wears his pants.
Damn it.
Jack, you're gonna be so excited.
3 now. I changed it to 3.
Thank you, Jack.
If he was a half horse, I would rate it higher.
He had a tail. It was a butt plug.
That just was weird, though, because I didn't know anything about the butt plug. And then all of a sudden, that he's like moving a fucking tail out of the way. I'm just like, what?
He's a pony.
He's a pony.
He had a tail.
And the other one had like a white braid, and so I was imagining
That was their hair.
I was imagining like, well, you know how they do up horses' tail, like for in a parade. So I'm like, is this person looks like a horse's ass, but then like it's actually their face, and they just have a braid, and it's white.
It's like those fucking horse costumes where one person's the head and one person's the ass.
Yes.
Amazing.
And like, okay, so
Only the head and the ass have sex.
the tail,
And then they fuck.
And then they fuck.
is attached to
happening?
his butt plug.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's the pony.
And but then it like, what is it like, fall in between his legs or something, and then he has to move it out of the way, like,
The tail part?
yeah.
I mean, it's the actual tail.
Ew.
it's a tail.
I know.
Where's it supposed to fall?
I don't know. He should have put it in a bun or something.
Should have braided it.
Oh my god, could you imagine?
It's a man bun, but on your ass.
Amazing.
Man.
Well, you don't want it like falling in between. Like, haven't you ever gotten like a hair like on ya and it feels disgusting?
I get hair in my ass all the time.
Right?
Because after
And
you
so
wash your hair, like just
imagine
migrates down
your
there.
entire ponytail up in your ass and someone else's business and like trying to move it. And then it's like mixing with the white braid somehow. And
Well,
I changed it to a 2.
a 2. Okay. Thank you for that thorough assessment, Jacqueline.
2 anal beads, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Not cock rings.
When it was a 4, was there a cock ring involved?
Yes.
Okay.
Diversity.
I hate rating things like a solid like 13 out of 13 because that would imply that it's perfect. And I mean, nothing's perfect, but like,
Especially when you have hair in your ass.
Life just can't be perfect with hair in your ass.
It's true.
you know what? I'm going to give this book a fucking 13 because this author put some goddamn thought into this kink-based magic system and they fucking deserve it. I'm sorry. 13. I don't care what they are. Circles, spheres, cock rings, all of them. 13. I'm rating it 13. Fuck it. Yes, this book was damn delightful. And it may not have been perfect, but it was damn near close to that for my entertainment value. So yeah, 13.
That was very
good job. Thank you for putting so much thought into this because I'll tell you. Yeah.
She's even angrier than I am.
Thank you for
she
that
loves
aggressive.
it. Raggy, what's your rating?
I think I have to give this. Okay. The first time I read this book, I would have agreed 100% with you, Ash. The second time I read through this book, I have to give it a 12. Only because.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I know.
Damn
right?
near perfect.
No, well, seriously, damn near perfect. And honestly, like, I read it through with a different perspective. Like, looked into what people were saying about it, and then looked into like, just like some of the magics. Anyway, just going back through it again, basically thoroughly. I found some like stuff that I'm like, okay, I don't really agree with that, or like that could have been done in a different way. But at the same time, it's a damn near close perfect book. And I'm like dead ass the second time I'm reading through stuff, I'm generally looking for those kind of things. So the fact that I'm super hypercritical the second time I read through, especially something like this that, again, I'm rating this on such a, like, I'm giving it such a hard curve because it's like there's no right this book was so good. Like there's no reason this book should have been that good. Like, I'm just like floored that it was amazing.
Well, when I told you about it, I was like, I told you about it and I was like, we should read this for the podcast. Like, it just makes sense. And you're like, yeah, okay, yeah. And then you read it and you're like, Ash,
what the fuck did I just read?
My love language is recommending books to people. So like when people come back to me after I've told them about a book and they're like ranting, it's like it gives me such feel goods. And I'll tell you, I get so nervous about recommending books because I'm like, what if they hate it? I'm like, what if they think I'm crazy? Especially a book like this where it's like, I mean, obviously with you, I knew you would enjoy, like, even if it was, you were like, nah, you would find entertainment or enjoyment in some capacity because of the content. I worry because I'm like, oh, what if they...
Do you know what this book is to me too? This book is so like fan fiction worthy. Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's yeah.
Like, I could see so many people writing fan fiction about this book and this system and this universe. Like, it's so well constructed and thought out.
Yes.
That you could like continue writing content in this like genre or in this like universe forever.
Or, I mean, the author themselves could write so many novellas about so many different aspects of it because there's so much to it. It's like, and like, even with all of the stuff that they've built up around all of it and the universe and stuff, there's like still so much room to grow, especially like once you get into the second and third book and like things start to kind of like flush out further. You're like, oh shit. The third book, like the first two books are written strictly from Dominai's perspective, but the third book is back and forth between Dom and Ulbrich.
Really?
Yeah, which I mean, I used to hate dual perspectives, and now I'm like, I need more of it. For reasons we can talk about, we'll probably talk about in the next podcast. But I really, yeah, like, just delightful. Just.
Yeah. Well, thanks for
good.
recommending that book, Ash, because I really enjoyed it. It was, again, I can't. I'm shooketh. I'm shooketh at how good the book is.
I love when I get to you.
I was not ready.
Like, I mean, and one might argue that is the spirit of this podcast because it came about because I just kept recommending recommending books to you. Like, yes.
Yeah, I was like, we need to talk about these books more often, and then we did.
And then we forced Jacqueline to endure.
Yeah, why am I here again?
Love you. Good girl.
Save me.
We love you dearly.
Please help.
So on the I Love Books thread, we're gonna talk about a couple other books that we read this week. One of the books I want to talk about. God. Buckle up, kiddos. Jacqueline, it's called All I Wanted Was Sushi, But I Got Abducted by Aliens Instead by Petro Palero.
Oh man, that is something that would happen to me, isn't it?
Right? So Opal is trying her best in the Midwest after all the sudden death of her parents. Everything comes right. Everything.
I mean, you could take Opal out and sub Jack in, and it's yeah.
Midwest. That
Well,
bucket nuts is from the Midwest
true.
too.
Everything comes to a crashing halt as when she's abducted by aliens and forced to work as a human dancer for extraterrestrial enjoyment. A chance encounter with an alien prince while stuck in traffic jam might just change the trajectory of Opal's new life in space. This book's amazing.
In a
Hold up.
traffic jam?
Hold up.
What's up, dog?
Tell me about the traffic jam. Like,
Okay.
Are they driving cars in space? Is it like the
So
same?
they're like hover cars.
Like the Jetsons?
Yeah, similar to Jetsons. So they're on a bus, like the
like
dancers.
Wall-E?
A little bit like Wall-E, but like,
But they're not.
but they're
robots.
not. Yeah, they're not like. Well, they're also not like on a. They're not in a spaceship, are they?
Wait, are they dancing on a party bus? Is that what you're saying?
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just gonna shut up and you please tell me.
So the bus, there's a bunch of dancers on this bus. They're all humans. They've all been like abducted, quote unquote, from Earth, and everyone else in the universe is assuming that like this is all copacetic and that they haven't been abducted. They've been like signed on to this stuff because like
they're there willingly.
they think they're there
Wink,
willingly.
wink, nudge, nudge.
Right. And because here's the thing, because the Prime Directive still exists and Earth doesn't know about alien life yet. So they're like, oh, well, these people must have signed on because otherwise they're not allowed to do that. That's super illegal in the galactic scale of things because they're not supposed to know aliens fucking exist on Earth. Anyway, but she's stuck in this traffic jam she's all like in this.
She's on a bus.
She's on a bus with a bunch of the other dancers and they just like gave her a shot of something that's going to like kick her off, if you know what I'm saying. And then she like
Horny
looks at-
drugs.
super horny drugs. And then she looks at the window and in the next car over is this fucking prince, which you don't know off the bat. Jack.
The look on Jacqueline's face. Keep going, Rachel. This is amazing.
Oh my god!
How do they meet if if they're both in their own vehicle?
Let her talk.
So she's like looking at this guy and she's getting the like, she's getting the ons. And
The on.
and then she gets the os, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, is that because of the pill or is that because he hands?
Okay. It's
both.
because
Oh
it's
my God,
both. So it's because they are fated mates, and so she's getting a response.
no.
And it's also because she's on these crazy drugs.
oh.
So she's like totally gets off, and he's like watching her, and he's like jerking it, and whatever. And then
Man, I hate when that happens.
Right?
Does she have to do anything or it just happens to her?
what?
When you said she
Oh
gets
no,
off.
she's like doing herself off.
Oh.
And so like the
Are all the other dancers just watching her?
They are.
helping her. What?
they're accepting it because
Are
they have all
they
been in this
helping?
situation before, where they're like the first time they get injected with these drugs, it's like instant, and they're like horny time, gotta
so
get
they're
off.
Like
They're just like,
veterans of
here we go.
this.
Oh yeah, everyone's been through this. Anyway, so he sees the side of the bus and where they're going or whatever, and he like follows them to the venue they're going to, and then he like pays for a private dance with this woman, and then he's like, hey, you're coming with me, you're my fated mate, because there's all these like rules and laws and stuff with your mates where he's like, well, I now own her because she's my mate, or like she's coming with me, and they're like, yeah, okay,
Such
bye.
a man thing.
It's such. Anyways,
Whatever, it's hot. Leave it alone.
and so
Wait.
there's what?
Shh. Jacqueline's reaction. Whenever it's hot. Excuse me?
Just let me pretend I'm Opal, okay?
Her parents are also dead, so like,
Yeah.
she really relates to this on a cosmic level.
So
I would
she
say.
just wants somebody who's going to take care of her like her parents did.
Anyway, so they go through this like huge rigmarole, and like there's a lot of political stuff that happens because like he's an alien species, like his family runs this planet basically, like he's a prince, and he's going to be taking over for them one day, and they're like, oh my god, you can't be mated with a fucking human, that's not cool because racism,
Especially
etc.
like a human fucking like
Oh, yeah, man.
dancer.
So,
the
like-
lowest kind of low.
So there's like a bounty put out on her and shit, and they have to like protect her. It's a whole thing. And then in the crossfire, his parents get killed, and it's like, it's insane, dude. It's a wild ride.
How
Now,
long is this book?
It's not very long. It's like maybe 150 pages or something. It's
How
short.
does all of this happen in 150 pages?
She goes real quick.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
So
Jacqueline's going to read this one.
now, what I will say, this is not a fabulous book. It is action-packed, and it's a great story.
You shut your mouth. It's fabulous, and we're done. And what have you been reading, Ashton?
What the fuck?
Anyway,
Is there anything else you want to say about that, Rachel?
that pretty much covers it up. All I wanted was sushi, but I got abducted by aliens instead by Petra Palermo, and it's on Kindle Limited. Go for it.
Do the aliens have sushi? Like, does she ever get her sushi?
She does. I don't think she gets her sushi. Actually, that's a really tragic ending to the book, I think.
Oh, maybe I won't read it.
Oh,
after
sorry.
all.
He's like mostly a fish person too, so maybe that's the actual resolution. Is that
She got her sushi.
she got her
after all.
sushi? Wink, wink. Anyway, so Ash, what have you been reading? That's a tough act to follow. I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm following it up with
Boring. Next.
Murder podcast.
I read Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston.
Preach.
Yeah. I just showed these guys the trailer for it because it comes out soon, the movie.
Yeah, so it's a book adapted into a movie.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a book.
Yeah. Oh, man. So
And everyone is on about this right now. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're in the future, but like in like mid-July, people are all about this.
I mean, people are all about this. People have been all about this for ages. Like, this book is huge. It's like queer romance, which is Ashton's bag. And the banter in this book, like,
Which totally comes through in that trailer.
oh my god. Okay,
Like,
so
it's a rom-com.
yeah, and it's kind of like a rivals to lovers because Henry and Alex don't like. So Alex is the son of the president of the United States. Henry is Prince of the UK, England.
The king and queen.
What?
Like he's the prince of Wales, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's royalty.
Mhm.
And they don't tend to get along too well. There's a whole thing behind that. And Henry's older brother's getting married, and so Alex and his sister June and their best friend end up at this wedding, and like the president is like, behave. And the long and short is something happens. They trip and fall on cake. $75,000 worth of cake. And scandal ensues. So for a matter of like, image, they're like, you two better pretend to like each other real fucking hard.
Because diplomatic
Exactly.
relations are important.
Yeah. So Alex goes and they like set up all this photo op and stuff and and like he starts to see Henry as he always seen Henry as kind of like very a cardboard cutty kind of guy, and he realizes that he's like got depth to him, and there's a lot of stuff, and then they become friends and they back and forth and they're texting and like it's oh my god, and they're emailing and all that stuff.
So
and then
cute.
It's so fucking adorable. It is so adorable. Oh my god.
Aggressively adorable.
Like I fucking loved this book. I like devoured it so fast. And then of course they become more than friends. And it is very like YA, and that like the smexy times are kind of like glazed over a bit. And I did struggle with that a bit, not in that like I can read a book that doesn't have that in it. It's just
Was it like Fade to Black style? Like that
I
kind
would
of thing?
have preferred Fade to Black.
Oh.
It was almost like trying to talk around it.
Oh,
but
that's too
then it like followed it up with like they were arguing about who's gonna sleep in the wet spot. Like, and there's like
That's too real.
it's so, and like the banter is so good, and like the situations, and like Henry's got a friend named Pez, and he calls himself Anti-Pezza, and Pez gets them kimonos with like things on the back of them, and Alex is Ho Dameron, and I was like, and there's like a Star Wars thing in it too, where like Leia, and like I'm just telling you, it was so fucking delightful, and I cannot wait to see this movie, even though like I know like June's not in the movie, whatever, but like
I mean, they have to abbreviate movies. That's just what they do.
and like Stephen Fry's in the movie too, and I fucking love Stephen Fry.
Lovely.
But in the books,
Oh my god, does he read the audiobook?
no.
Oh.
I see where you're going with that. No. In the books, the queen is the queen. Like in this, it's a king because they wanted to change it so that it wasn't so close to, because the Queen Elizabeth was still alive. They wanted to change it so it wasn't so close to like reality. And then the queen died. And now we have a king anyway. They have a king anyway. But I just, oh my god, I can't wait. I like.
Is the president female?
Yeah.
Like his mom? Hell yeah.
His mom is, not only is the president female, but his father is, I believe, Mexican. So he's biracial. So it's like, it's so fucking cute.
All the good stuff.
All the, yeah, like.
So that's going to be on Prime, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Alex's character is so like, just like super quick. And I really appreciate a character that's funny and amusing and those kinds of things. It just, I can't fucking wait.
It sounds very charming. I'm kind of excited to see it.
I apologize to all of our listeners who have to listen to this right now. I'm very hormonal, and it's making me very intense. But
Okay.
the book is fantastic.
So that's Red, White, and Blue. Red, White, and
Red,
Royal
White,
Blue.
and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston.
Cool. And that's I've seen that in the bookshelves at Indigo, like all over the place.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah. And when does it come out on Prime? Do you know?
August 11th.
Perfect. So that'll be very shortly after this comes out.
Hopefully, because with all the strikes and stuff going on right now, I think that, anyway, hopefully it'll be out on August 11th.
It's like mid-August. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Ash. Jack, have you been listening to anything fun?
Oh my god.
What do you got?
Yeah, nobody cares. We're moving on.
Is it about aliens?
and that's signing out now, right?
You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Buckle up. What do you got?
It's called Who Shat on the Floor at My Wedding.
I've heard of this.
Yeah.
Did you talk about this last time?
No. Because I just
Somebody brought this
listening.
up at one point.
I
Okay, sorry, go
1,000%
ahead.
had a client tell me about this.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of this.
Yeah. Okay, so it's like friggin' huge now for some reason, even though it's been out for a little while. I've only listened to 2 episodes so far. Bucket Nuts has listened to more and tells
Traitor.
me that I really need to catch up. And so, yeah. Who shat on the floor at my wedding? So
I came across this on TikTok. That's where I found it.
oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, Jack,
It's-
continue.
Ugh, I can't eat. Like, you just have to listen to it. But basically, these 2 women got married on a boat of some sort. Like, sounds like a rich people wedding. And someone shat on the floor. And because it's on a boat,
Shocking.
because it's on a boat, everyone was trapped there. So it couldn't just be like any
It's a
random
whodunit.
person. So they hire, I don't know, find some friend of theirs who's from New Zealand and has the most glorious accent ever. It's so thick and it's just so perfect. And she's this like detective. She says that she like signed up for a detective class. So
Hell
she's
yeah.
like basically a professional kind of thing. And so she's helping them figure out who shat on the floor at their wedding by like she interviews them, and she's interviewed someone that was at the wedding and then another person that was at the wedding who used to date one of them. So she's like, well, you used to date her, so was there anything like going on that maybe you shat on the floor at their wedding? And she buys this lie detector test, I think just like off Amazon or whatever, and hooks people up to it.
This is amazing.
And apparently there's like a button she can just press that's like if she like witnesses like she's asking someone a question, and if they make like a weird movement or like shift their eyes, she can like push the button to kind of be like, I think they're lying. So then like, the lie detector test will just give out the results, which are amazing. Oh my god, amazing.
This sounds rad.
Yeah, if you like podcasts, you really should listen to it.
Where are you downloading it from?
I use an app called Pocket Casts.
Cool.
But I think like you can listen to it on
Most
any
places.
of your podcast apps.
Cool.
And also still watching MasterChef Australia.
Yes, of course.
The finale is really, really soon, and I'm gonna be sad it's over. But there's another show that I like from Australia, and it's called The Block.
Oh, yes, I've heard of this.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for that, Jack. I appreciate that. Next time we are back, folks, we are celebrating a very special person's birthday.
My dog.
Yeah, we're celebrating Ashton and her dog's birthday. And by celebrating, we're reading Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros
Yeah, we are. And getting Ashton a puppy.
and getting Ash a puppy.
Sex. I thought she was getting sex.
Anyway, I tried.
Puppy
So
play? No.
Oh! Oh my.
who's a good girl?
Bye, guys.
Bye.
I'm a good girl.
Please help.
So Fourth Wing, I had to order it from the UK because it's been sold out all over North America. So if you can get your hands on it, please do. There's audiobook is out, I believe.
And actually, I just saw that because God love the narrator in the audiobook. You can really tell that they're sick because there's a lot of like swallowing and stuffy nose sounds, and there's been a lot of talk about it. And I believe I just read that the author has heard the internet's outcry, and it's being
Re-recorded.
I don't know if it's being re-recorded or if it's being edited or what's happening, but like,
interesting. Okay.
I mean, we were talking earlier about the author and how they just seem like a
decent person.
solid human being, and I love when you see things like the author has heard their fan base and been like, okay, yeah, we're going to adjust this or we're going to do whatever. Brilliant. Anyway, we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, so check it out. That's Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. We'll talk to you next time, guys. Thanks for joining me, and have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Queens of Spice podcast. You'll find us on Instagram and Twitter at Queens of Spice. Or if you want to send us an email, you can reach us at queensofspice@gmail.com.